Good evening and welcome to another episode of Territories Talk. I am your co-host, Shaina Smith Archer. First off, let me give apologies for my two co-hosts, Chris Famous and Eden Hurlston. Both are other engagements tonight, but we are looking forward to an interesting and informative conversation as always. Let me first thank everyone who is tuned in and also thank our media partners, Virgin Islands CBN Radio, Bermuda Channel 82, Montserrat ZJB Radio, Cayman Marl Road, Saba Radio, as well as we now have TCI is on board as one of our radio stations. So we want to thank you again for joining us. So tonight, my guests, we're gonna have a very fun time, I think, unpacking this topic. We've been touching on it in various episodes, but we haven't got into the crux of the matter as it was. So I brought in two heavy hitters to help us tonight to understand what has been happening in the Virgin Islands. We're gonna first start ladies first. Miss Shirley, please introduce yourself for those guests who do not know you.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Shirley Osborne. I'm from Montserrat. And I think most pertinent to this conversation is that politics is something I love politics, and challenging politics like the times we're going through now just kind of excite me and kind of lock me in. And I'm also very much a regionalist, very, very much a regionalist. And I think that we ought to be working out together a lot more than we do on issues like this, issues of governance and autonomy and progress and development. And, perhaps this difficult time might be one of those things that spur us to do some more of this. So perhaps some good will come out of this.
Well, I'm Edjuenka. That's my chosen name. And I'm from the Virgin Islands. I'm a radio host. My show is called Umoja, which is one of the principles of Kwanzaa. Is the first principle, actually. It's the Kiswahili word that means unity. And I believe that unity is the key to our success. If I were to give myself a world view identification, I would say I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe that we are one African people wherever we are, and that we should unify for our global, regional, and national good. And of course, I enjoy politics as well. I was once I'm a founding member of the National Democratic Party. I was once the chairman. And I'm hoping that we could steer ourselves clear of direct rule and develop into a self-governing territory. So I'm hoping that tonight we can have a meaningful discussion on whatever the issues are, whatever the topics are, and we can inform and enlighten. Thank you, Sister Sheila.
I'm not hearing you, Shaina.
Okay, you guys hearing me? All right. So we're gonna have to work on an African name for Shirley.
I wouldn't mind, actually.
You break it up a little.
Okay. Yeah,
I don't know.
It's in the best.
I always have problems with the internet, so I can't blame you.
Okay. Yeah. We're gonna do okay. All right. So we're gonna start off first by explaining. I think most people by now, if they hadn't heard before the previous week about the Commission of Inquiry that was launched back in 2021 here in the Virgin Islands, that when the report now was released and the recommendations were found out, or the community response was, most people now started to understand, what had been taking place for the last was over a year here. So, Carmela, I'm going to defer to you and let you open up in terms of, really summary. What is a Commission of Inquiry and what was the Commission of Inquiry here in the Virgin Islands about?
Well, there was a call, I think, from shortly after the election before the 2019, around 2015, when the National Democratic Party won the election. The then opposition member, Honorable Andrew Foy, began to label the government as a corrupt government and called for a commission and inquiry. And he did that up until the election of 2019, which we know the Virgin Islands Party won that government, that election, that administration. And the continued calls for the calls continued for a commission of inquiry. And at the end of Governor Jasper's term, just before he left the territory, he initiated the commission inquiry. And then Sir, I think it's Sir Hickenbottom came and began the inquiry. And the inquiry was into alleged corruption in government, mismanagement, malfeasance. And so it took quite some time, and the process went on. And after that, after it ended, the process ended. Of course, many civil servants and politicians and members of civil society were interviewed, and information was given. Then, of course, a couple of weeks ago, the report, well, we knew that the report came out. The governor told us that the report was out. I can't remember the exact dates, but it was out a month before, at least a month before it was published. The public got a hold of it. And it brings me to my first point, that I thought it unfair that the governor and the UK had a month in advance to examine the report and prepared for discussions regarding the report. But the politicians, our representatives, and the public here only had a couple of days, and actually none of the days are working days, because we got the report on a Friday, and Honorable Amanda Milling, who is the Foreign Secretary, I think, came the Monday to have discussions. So it just left us with 2 days in the weekend to examine the report and make our representations. And it's quite a detailed report. There's a lot of preamble and history and concerns and identification of issues and what could be termed, what the commission termed possibilities of corruption, perhaps dishonesty, and there's a lot of that kind of language. I didn't see anything that point directly to evidence of corruption. Now, matter of fact, the only thing I really saw that point to evidence of corruption was that came out of the conviction of police officers who had went through the judicial process and were convicted of corruption. But as far as the government was concerned, there were a lot of environment conducive to corruption, perhaps serious dishonesty may have taken place, and that kind of language. And so here we are, and the recommendations, 45 recommendations, 4 overarching recommendations. The one that we are primarily concerned about is the recommendation to suspend our Constitution, dissolve our House of Assembly, and abolish ministerial government for at least a period of 2 years.
Yeah.
And so that's where we are. And of course, we've had, I think today was a second demonstration against direct rule of the United Kingdom. And subsequent to the release, the members of the House of Assembly created what is now called a national unity government in an attempt to stem the tide of the implementation of direct rule. And so we're still waiting on the decision of the United Kingdom in that regard. So far, the government of national unity appeared to be well received by the population, and the population is under the belief that since the governor swore in the new government or the different government, that somehow that means that we have aborted direct rule. I am not so sure of that, and we have to still wait the United Kingdom decision. So I think in a nutshell, that's some of what I recollect. Shaina.
Miss Shirley, I see you nodding your head. Share with us your thoughts on our situation here, as well as I think you in Montserrat may have had a similar situation. So I guess probably start with that and then come forward to our situation.
Yeah, I think that in many ways, we in Montserrat at any rate we look at the Montserrat situation as being one of the first overt instances of the British attempting to reassert a certain kind of rule in the Caribbean, in our territories, because since 1988-89, right after Hurricane Hugo, Montserrat got demolished by Hurricane Hugo in September 1989, and right after that, the British people showed up with what they said was a new constitution for Montserrat, and in the interest of supporting Montserrat to get itself back on its feet and to move forward and to progress and so on. And they lodged some of the same charges: corruption, malfeasance, malgovernance, what have you. The issue then was offshore banking. Montserrat had been doing really well, offshore banking. And they arrested a couple of people. My father was one, another minister of government. And they were talking of things like, $5,000 here and $20,000 picked up there, and an American bank doing this. And nothing much came of it. And there's a court case that just didn't go anywhere. Nobody was found guilty. Neither my father nor the other minister was found guilty. But the big issue was this new constitution that they wanted to foist, was the word that was used, foisting upon us this new constitution, which would have taken away, which eventually did take away our right to manage our own financial services business. And so Montserrat lost a lot of income. And, I have to tell you that we all know there were offshore banks registered by the hundreds or thousands, I don't know, in Montserrat, lots and lots and lots of them. And they were mostly Americans and British people. It wasn't Caribbean people. And the laws allowed that there was no massive movement of monies in and out. These offshore banks where money doesn't come in, paperwork is done, and according to the laws. So they weren't challenging the laws that we had. They were challenging the way the things were run. And according to them, people were receiving gifts. They never proved any of that, because there really were not any massive amounts of money moving around. And they got down to, I remember listening to my father talk about things, the manager of the bank came in with some people and invited the government to dinner, and according to the British, that was a problem. And, we know the fine lines between these things, but, in the upshot, it wasn't that. But what ended up happening was Montserrat fought back about the constitution because, among other things, there was issues of the disposal of crown lands, which was a problem because Montserrat, at that time, a big part of our industry was tourism. But residential tourism, people actually bought land and built houses, not big hotels and so on. And again, there were no issues of improper disposal of lands. A lot of the land had been owned by companies who had owned it during the periods of enslavement and colonialism anyway. And earlier governments in the 1950s and 60s had done some work to get some of that land into the hands of regular Montserratians. And so the wide swaths of land that got sold for towards development were bought from people, from European people who had owned the lands. But in any case, they handed this constitution down. And I said we fought back against the lands thing, the financial services thing that went the way it went, but the land we held on to that until 2020. They came back 2010, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10. They came back with a new constitution in which that's what was written in, again, the issue of crown lands. And I remember writing an article for the newspaper about it at the time. It doesn't make sense that the governor can distribute our land, has ultimate authority over our land. And the important thing in the constitution for me was there are several areas where it said, and the governor's actions may not be inquired into by any court. Those just don't make any sense to me. And so we've come to this place. We're still battling with that constitution, which I don't call a constitution. It's a British document that they've imposed on us. We didn't choose that, and we would not have chosen those had we had the option. So it's not ours, it's theirs, and they're welcome to it, by the way. And so now we come to this. In the meantime, there was TCI, and we've had they've made these forays into Bermuda and everybody in the meantime, and they get pushed back. But I think what's important to remember in all of this, that this is a long game that's being played here. It's a very long game. It's been playing out for centuries, and it's, like Montserrat, like I said, was in 1988, 89, and 2010 they're still working on it now. Every time you look around, there's some other little piece of autonomy that's been pulled back. Just a few weeks ago, earlier this year, we got a new governor. She came in from BVI. You know her. And among the things that happened just about the time the governors were being swapped out was because our civil service is being run so badly and our people are so often and corrupt, we got a man put into the AG's office whose job is discipline of the public service. And the word I've been using in my writings and so on is that we're back to the days of the overseers, because that's his job, discipline of, bad behavior in the public service. And so we've been watching the whole question of the COI in the BVI, and many of us are actually alarmed. And I personally am really, I stand really firmly with the people pushing back against direct rule. Now, we all know that in governments everywhere, in any organization, in families, everywhere, people do things they're not supposed to do. But relieving yourself, relieving the family of its ability to manage itself and fix itself and reorganize itself, it didn't work. It doesn't work. And so I have real serious problems with that. We're watching this because we also are aware right now there are New Scotland Yard is in Montserrat. Again,
you know what? I didn't hear the last part.
I said right now the New Scotland Yard is doing investigations in Montserrat. They've been in there for the whole year, pretty much. They've been there for several months. Again, monies that have come into the island that have been misused, not used properly, they can't account for. And so, it's turning out that everybody is corrupt. We are so soundly, deeply corrupt that we are also very, very, very concerned that.
I don't know if it's your audio, Shirley, or is me. Are you hearing her clearly, Adrianka? It seems as if she's breaking up.
I'm hearing you.
Yeah, I'm hearing her for the most part. We are going in and out just slightly. I'm not too much concerned. I'm not too much concerned as yet, but I had a little breakup intermittently.
Yeah.
But it seems to be going okay though.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. There's a little bit of a noise behind it, a little shh, but I'm hearing you clearly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, that's where we are, Shaina. That's where we are. We are watching the BVI and we are looking to see, what's coming up for Montserrat, because we're all aware. We're very much aware that something's coming down the pike for Montserrat. We just are not quite sure what. Mm.
Wow. Yeah, I was not aware. It was Chris I was speaking to
Mhm.
when he suggested it would be a good idea for us to see what's happening in Montserrat.
Mhm.
Similar or parallel events, as it were, are taking place in terms of what's on the ground. So I hope, again, other overseas territories are being vigilant,
Mhm.
and that
Yeah.
all of us are being watchful, because we're in the same arena, as it were,
Mhm.
having to deal with similar circumstances.
Mm.
So,
That's
Edgewanka,
correct.
as far as
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
okay, so I was gonna ask, in terms of the remainder of the report, someone was asking if the contents of the report was shared with any government officials. So no, at the time when the governor indicated, which was at the beginning of April, that he had received the report from the COI commissioner, so Gary, he hadn't shared it with any of the government officials. I think the only person he indicated was the Minister for Overseas Territories. And at the time when it was released, it's still, I think the former premier was traveling at the time, so he wouldn't have seen the report. But what Cromwell referred to was that basically that last week in April was when the report was released publicly. Maybe the day before it was given to the acting premier at the time, and since then, subsequent, they have been able to review it as well as the public. So the report is on the um, BVI inquiry website. So if anyone hasn't seen it, they're able to view it there.
Mhm.
So what's your thoughts overall on the report, Cromwell? Because you and I have had several conversations in terms of the recommendations. Are they valid, or what are your thoughts in terms of where it will land us?
Well, I the report is not the easiest read. Let me start out by saying that. And I suggested to some of my colleagues that uh, we get an attorney or someone competent in reading those types of documents to do an analysis of the document, uh, look at all that has been said, and to see how the recommendations will affect us. Because I suspect that there may be some recommendations in the report that may not be in our best interest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that we ought to look at it from a perspective of what the impact would be. Now, the parts that I read have in a lot of that ambiguous language
Mhm.
that I mentioned before, may have been uh, some dishonesty, environment conducive to corruption, that kind of language without any uh, supporting evidence. It mentioned a couple of projects. One was the airline the airline project and the wall around the high school. Those two projects were mentioned, and it 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 just says may have been some dishonesty there.
Mm-hmm.
Due diligence may not have been followed, and so uh,
So the
the thing about
recommendation
the
there
wall
is
was that,
for a further audit.
well, the recommendations for the airline and the airline challenge and the wall was to have a criminal investigation.
Mhm.
So they are looking into those two projects to see if any criminality occurred.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I, you know, most of the uh, recommendations, I think, designed to strengthen the civil service processes. You know, uh, audit, more audits and uh, better structures and processes to make sure the administration functions better and close some of the loopholes and so on. The recommendations are like that. And so that gives me the feeling that direct rule is not justifiable in the report.
Mhm.
Although Sir Gary Hickenbottom insisted that if the United Kingdom doesn't implement direct rule, the challenges of the the administration, the civil service, and the politicians' disregard for good governance will continue indefinitely.
Mhm.
Which to me sounds like of a prediction that
Mhm.
he's not qualified to make. You're like predicting the future. So so in other words, as a people, we cannot fix our problems ourselves. There's no way we can fix our problems ourselves. And so if Britain doesn't take us over,
Yeah.
those problems will never get fixed. Our representatives would persist in what they are perceiving to be wrongdoing.
Mhm.
And so that's some of the challenges that I have. And it went further in its attempt to absolve the governor and governors from any responsibility in culpability in what they are calling possibilities of corruption or maybe dishonesty may have taken place. They to paraphrase uh, Sir Hickenbottom, uh, he says that the presentation by the government in an attempt to put some of the responsibility on the governor was not compelling at all.
Mhm.
Right? That's sort of the gist of what he said. And it was interesting to me because the governor is the head of the civil service, you know, and if malfeasance and maladministration was happening, I can't see how the governor, as the chairman of cabinet, would have missed those things. And let's say he missed them in cabinet. Let's say the politicians are doing them on the side. But you had the Auditor General's report. You had the Complaints Commissioner made a
Mhm.
report regarding all of the department flaws that he came across from public complaints. If the governor was paying attention to in my view, if the governor was paying attention to the civil service, he wouldn't wait for that report. He would ask the commissioner, the complaints commissioner, to give him that report and ask and the auditor general report is supposed to come to him as well. So the governors, and I'm not Governor Rankin is just arrived, I think 18 months or so. So, but the governors, governor after governor after governor, have come to the Virgin Islands and really have done nothing, done very little, I should say, to strengthen the administrative processes of the civil service. And now here they are making these recommendations to strengthen the service and and blaming the lack of the strength of the lack of the effectiveness and efficiency in these processes on the elected representatives. I
Mhm.
can't see how he could be absolved from that responsibility. Now,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
the deputy governor who sort of helped with the the administration of the civil service, or the leader of the civil servants, the civil service. I know, Shana, you know, there was some initiative of public service reform that was taking place. I don't know how much of what was found was implemented, but if there was anything being done, that was, I think, in 2019. Well, no, it was 20,
It was right
2015,
after the
somewhere
hurricane,
thereabouts.
2018.
It was
The last one,
2018. Okay,
2018.
I'm not good. I'm not good with remembering dates, but you know, you recall that, I'm sure, because I think you was involved in the civil service at that time. But those things, I don't know what if they ever bore fruits, and what happened. But the point is, to me, that the strengthening of the civil service should have occurred over subsequent terms of government, of governors, and they didn't happen. And to me, the all of what we are being blamed for, I see as failings of the United Kingdom uh, as the administering power of the overseas territory, the administrative power of the Virgin Islands.
Yeah.
Because in the charter, the United Nations Charter for Decolonization, Article 73, it clearly spells out that the administering power responsibility is to advance the territories, the colonies, to a point, and create a clear path for self-determination, for self-governance. And so and so clearly, proper administration of the civil service is included in that remit that they agreed to and signed on to.
Yeah.
And so, how can you now come and blame the people of the territory, blame the governments, you know, government after government, for this failure, when governor after governor who represents the administering power on the ground have done nothing to strengthen the service and to address those issues.
Well, let's pause right there because I have a question to pose to you guys. Just want to acknowledge again our media partners: ZJB Radio, Montserrat, PJFE, Saba, CBN Radio here in the Virgin Islands, 90.9 FM, Channel 82 in Bermuda, Cayman Marl Rose Facebook page, and Radio Turks and Caicos. It was our newest partner that has now signed on. So we are working on our last OT is actually Anguilla and possibly elsewhere within the region. So hearing all of that, Miss Shirley, we still have persons here and abroad, because I've been reading, you know, comments and listening to different shows. People feel like direct rule is the best thing for us. And I want you to help us tonight to understand why that is, in terms of, again, what Cromwell talked about, where we were supposed to have been prepared, all of us OT. So first off, in Montserrat, do you guys have a working program towards decolonization? One. And then also share with us, you know, help us to understand, those of us who are struggling with it, to help us understand why direct rule is not a good option when it comes to a non-self-governing territory and advancing its development.
Well, you know, one of the first posts I did in social media when I after this announcement was made is that direct rule is a nasty colonial power play. It is. I have a visceral reaction to that kind of thing, partly because of history, partly because it is clear to me and clear to many other people that had the administering power, let's call them that, had the former colonials had any interest, real interest in the development of the colonies, had any interest, and not just the Caribbean colonies, we're talking about America, Africa, Southeast Asia, and so on. If they had any real interest in the advancement and development of the people of the country, they would have provided right from the start. They'd have made sure that we had the infrastructure, the resources, the systems that would support that. We have never had them. I remember again hearing my father talk about some of the independent countries now, when they went to England, when they were negotiating for their independence, and they asked for certain things to get support, got none of that. And so the idea that now all of a sudden, they're willing to help for the good of the people sounds a little bit rich to me. And I think that one of the things that is important to remember is that the system that the British are complaining about, the systems that they're complaining about that they are saying are so corrupt, and or the systems that are breeding this corruption is a system that they set in place. We have barely modified it since they left us a system of governance in which we are pitted against. We have government and opposition. Opposition is by definition oppositional. When you oppose somebody, what you do is fight against them. We have a parliament in which we sit squaring off against each other. We are eye to eye, eyeball to eyeball, because what you say I have to counter. And so they've set it up so we've been fighting one another, and so that when one political party gets into office, their major job they see is to ensure they stay in, or they get as much as they can in the short time before the other people come in. And the other people come in and this is not something we necessarily developed ourselves. That is what was left with us. So when they talk about nepotism and favoritism and victimization and so on, all of the territories, all the Caribbean countries, the African countries, they all complain about the same thing. And nepotism in itself is not, favoritism is not in itself a bad thing, because in the United States, if you run a company, you're looking for somebody to work, you call somebody that's the biggest and best jobs, that's who get them. You call somebody you look for somebody and they will tell you here that the vast majority of jobs are not the ones that you get by putting out an ad. It's who you get from who you know. And make it as basic as you like. If you want a plumber for your house, you don't just pick a plumber out of the yellow pages. You call me, say, Shirley, I need a plumber for, so do you know anybody? That's how it works. There's nothing wrong with that. The thing that makes a difference is that because we've been left this legacy of always having to one up and get better and get more than the other person, we continue fighting ourselves. And it's showing up in Montserrat. No, we don't have a plan for decolonization. We have a member of parliament who has kind of made it the focus of his work, and that's Romeo. And but the people, the mindset, the indoctrination into, we still use terms like mother country and benefactor, believe it or not. The people who do that. And so the people who want direct rule are still working on the basis that it's better that those people come and fix things for us. The challenge with that is that when people come and fix things for you, A, you don't learn how to fix them yourselves. And two, you're left in the position that I am not competent, I'm not capable. So it's reinforcing that we're not competent, we can't take care of ourselves when we can. And just like Edrenka was saying earlier, if things were so bad all along and you were so interested, then the governors would have been monitoring and calling in people and talking to people and working through the issues going along. Once that's the thing. If you're telling me that we're digging into mismanagement of government funds and government projects and policies over the last 20, 25 years, we've had so many governors, deputy governor, premier, ministers of whoever. You run a company, you see something that's going, you call in the person responsible and say, let's have a talk about this. How do we fix this? You don't wait until it's rotted. Yeah. Unless, of course, you have an agenda. And that's my major issue with this. And I've heard some people say, well, we talk as if we own ourselves. We have to remember that Britain owns us. First of all, Britain doesn't own us. And second, when they say that Britain didn't want to intervene because we say we want to be, the logic just does not fit, because it doesn't fit. You work things through. If your responsibility is this, you work things through. Let me give an example. In Montserrat, there's one of the issues with the deputy governor. There was some raise of pay and so on that apparently turns out was not authorized. She adjusted that's the story. She adjusted her pay. And the government actually said this when just was leaving. She asked for a raise of pay. He said, no, now's not the right time. And she went back and came back with the contract. The raise of pay was in there in a different form. He signed it without looking at the thing. He signed off without checking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so who's responsible for this? Who failed? He did not check his work, so he did not do his work properly. And when the issue surfaced, he did not handle it properly either. But now the civil service is all corrupt, and we need somebody from England to sit in the AG's office and discipline people, because the people who ostensibly have the responsibility, they're not handling it. So, No, direct rule is not responsibility. We are adults. We are intelligent, educated, competent people. No more corrupt than anybody else. No more corrupt than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And the other. I mean, to be a little bit, if Scotland had mismanagement in government, the British couldn't go up there and say, we're going to take over we're going to run your country. They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So why must they do it with us?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So guys, amazingly, the hour is almost up.
Oh, wow.
So I want us to pivot. We're definitely going to have to do, a series on this, because we know that the situation on the ground is very tentative or tenuous as it is, because we understand that, things are still being negotiated as it relates to the implementation now of these recommendations. And for there to be agreement between both the government here and the UK government on how things now are supposed to be, cleaned up, as it were. Mm-hmm. What I'll start first with you, Shirley, and end with Cromwell. What do you see as the way forward? Some people support us still having our elected representatives there. Mm-hmm. Some people don't. They would have preferred to see an election called. And again, all these things have implications. Some people think that would fix the problem, but it actually might create another host of problems in the mix on that. So what do you think, the future of or the territory should look like, I guess, for the next 6 months as a start? And where we need to be paying attention to as a community as it relates to the situation?
I think the first thing, as a community, the focus needs to be on maintaining the community, maintaining identity, getting clear on the identity. Are we British? Are you British? Or are you just British Virgin Islanders? Who are you? And it has to begin there. Because if you accept that Britain owns us and so they have a right to come in and fix us, then you're already set back. I like the idea. I'm encouraged by the National Unity government. Mm-hmm. Personally, I think that we in the Caribbean need to look at that a lot more. This fighting amongst ourselves has not helped us. It's not helping. It's not working for England. It's not working for America either. And so what we need, because we are so small, they can fight amongst themselves and still manage. They got 60 million or 200 million, 300 million people, in America, whatever. So if they can find the bodies to make up for, we can't do that. With the few people we have, we need to figure out how not to be fighting against ourselves. And so in Montserrat, one of the things that we've been talking about for years is reviewing this whole electoral process. Do we want to continue this system of fighting against one another, or being in the opposition? Or do we want to find a way in which we can work together, work out our differences about our perceptions, our ideas about progress and development, work them out together, or work them out against one another? And I think the best thing to do is to maintain this national unity government. So we are all in the same boat, and we're going to disagree, but we work it out together. And I think look at a way of seeing how that can be taken forward into the future. And I think elections are probably important at this point. Well, at some point in the future. Right now, just like you said, things are too tenuous and tentative, and you have to be too careful. But that should be part of the plan. We can fix this. Most of the people in the BVI are not bad people, just like anywhere else. The BVI is not, 18,000. How many are you?
30.
30,000. They're not 30,000 horrible, corrupt people. There might be 100 really bad people, but for them, everybody else. So you can find enough people to run a government, run it well, run it with integrity, run it with clarity and intelligence. You just have to find them, and you find them by telling the people agreeing we want to do this, and allowing people time to do that. But bringing in a bunch of British civil servants to run the Caribbean in 2022 doesn't make any sense. So yeah, that's what I would say. That's what I would go for. Hold on to the government of national unity, push really hard for it, and figure out how to get that again next, and let that be the counter to the thing. And just keep saying no. We're not 30,000 bad people, just like you are not 60 or 80,000 bad English people. We have people here, we're competent, we're capable, but everywhere, in every part of the world, in every system, you will find people, and we can come up with our remedies, and we can enforce them ourselves. We can manage ourselves, and we will submit to oversight. We have our own oversight bodies from CARICOM, including British people, American, whoever, just like you do for election overseeing. You have people who oversee, people with no direct interest, but it cannot be direct rule. That goes counter to everything that we hold dear. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I happen to agree with Sister Shirley, what she said. I think we need to, first of all, let me say I'm really grateful as a Virgin Islander for the support, for the regional support that we have gotten these past few weeks, and from CARICOM, from OECS, from individuals. Sir Henry Beckles, the University of the West Indies. Yeah, and I mean the outpouring of support for us and against direct rule, and letting Britain know that the region stands behind the Virgin Islands against direct rule. I think that was really a tremendous feeling for me, and yes. I just want the region to know that I personally appreciate that, and I'm sure many of us here in the Virgin Islands appreciate that as well. I think that we have not done enough as a territory to educate ourselves as to what the possibilities of direct rule may be, what the consequences of direct rule may be. That you have overseeing power come into your territory and make laws that may not necessarily be in our best interest and would probably be in their best interest. And I've always said, Shaina, that when interests conflict between the administrative power and the territory, the administrating power's interest will be the paramount interest. And so we can't rely on the United Kingdom to look out after our interests. And so we have to be educated enough to understand what the consequences can be, what the possibilities are when it comes to the distribution of our crown land, when it comes to the use of our natural resources. And we have this habit of saying that we don't have, we are resource poor, is a phrase some persons like to use. We are a resource poor country. We've thought for a long time that the square miles of the Virgin Islands was 59 square miles. Come to find out in the Sustainable Development Plan that the square miles of the Virgin Islands is actually 634 square miles, because 70% of the Virgin Islands is water, but we only count land mass. And we don't know what's under the sea, so we don't really know what resources that we have. Yeah. We don't know what's under the ocean. But you could bet your bottom dollar that the UK knows. And so they, having left Brexit it appears to me, particularly from what Sister Shirley has said going on in Montserrat and what we have seen going on in other territories, that they are trying to resuscitate, in my view, and this is my opinion, they are trying to resuscitate the British Empire, the dead British Empire. And so we have to be mindful of that we don't lose our land, because whether we are a colony or not, our forefathers paid for this land. And if they don't want to give us reparation, we need to own the land. We need to claim the land as reparation. If they want to give us monetary reparations, the land is our reparation. We own it. We should own the land. And so we need to educate ourselves as to what direct rule would mean, so that we get a clear understanding and we could unite around that particular issue. The other thing too is that, lastly, I don't believe in going to the perpetrator of the crime to look for justice. And so, with the support of the region and the failure, what I consider to be the failure of the administering power under Article 73, we need to make a case at the United Nations that this behavior of the United Kingdom is unacceptable, and not wait around with anxiety until the United Kingdom make a decision as to whether we're going to have the direct rule or not. And finally, our unity government, as great as it is an indication, I feel can be an indication to the United Kingdom of how desperate we are to not have direct rule, and therefore they could continue to ask concessions of our government, because they are thinking that we have the blade and they have the handle. And so we need another source of redress. We need another source of redress. We should not be relying on the United Kingdom to be honest with us. Over the centuries, they have not demonstrated to people of African descent, regionally and internationally, that they are trustworthy. And so we need to keep those things in our mind and have other plans as well as the plan that we are carrying out now. But unity is the key to our success. And I just want to end with that we can't continue to be bad-mouthing each other in favor of the United Kingdom under no circumstance at all.
Yeah, and that is very key, because again, I was surprised. I think it was last week, in viewing a show in Cayman. Actually, it was Cayman Marl. We had a few persons on there from here in the Virgin Islands, and the perspectives of some of the persons, you realize that the same narrative that is here in the Virgin Islands is also existing in the other OTs, in terms of saying that, we need help, so let the UK take it over for 2 years. And one of my biggest concerns was, it's taken for 2 years, and then that sets us back 70, because it was over 70 years ago we asked back for local governance. And from then till now, I think we've made more right decisions than wrong ones. And of course, yes, there's always going to be room for improvement, but there's still this self-doubt in us as a people in terms of our capacity in the 21st century to be able to rule yourself just like the first world countries, And that's one of the things for me. I really want to see a shift in our thinking, because we can't move forward towards, but as you guys have said, it's all part of parcel of what's been happening. Because the thing that stood out for me in the self-governance assessment report, Edgewenka, that we recently received, was the fact that they had essentially written to the United Nations back in 1986, I believe it was, to say they're not participating in the decolonization program anymore, and it's up to the colonies to say whether or not they want to remain British or to go independent. But saying that we're going to help you to get to that place of self-governance, essentially it seems as if they disengage from that approach.
Do I have a few seconds?
Go ahead. You can take a minute and then we'll start to wrap up.
Yeah. yes, I paid particular attention to that part of the assessment. And what was actually happening is that the British United Kingdom wanted the United Nations to accept the status of their colonies as colonies that have been decolonized. That the level of self-governance that we had or have can no longer be classified as a colony and colonial rule. And the United Nations Community of 24 roundly and decisively rejected that notion that the measure of self-governance that could not be the measure of self-governance could not be accepted where you have a governor that has to assent to a people's laws.
Yeah.
Or you have a governor that is in control of the civil service and the security of the country. So we have three options. We have independence. We have self-governance with free association, and we have self-determination. What's integration? Integration. Now, integration is curious to me. That's a curious option to me, because how do you have self-determination and becoming a municipality of the United Kingdom or a province of the United Kingdom? I don't understand how that would work from that perspective. But I see it as a loophole, even from the United Nations, to allow the colonizers to have an oath to keep their colonies. You know, that whole process, that whole option of integration to me is a loophole to keep your colonies. Create a situation in your colonies where the population lacks confidence in its leadership, and so they decide, self-determined, to want to be a part of you. So by that standard, they maintain their colony, and they come out smelling like a rose, saying that's the choice of the people. And so these are tricks to me. These are all tricks of the administering powers and some tricks of the United Nations itself. Because to me, like my mother used to say, them all cost the same price.
But again,
half a dozen on the next.
But that's exactly what the changes in the constitutional orders that they're setting out. That's exactly what it's taking us to. And I'm surprised. I am concerned and troubled that not enough of our people are aware of that. Just as much as they need to be educated about what the consequences of direct rule would likely be. It is important, I think, that they understand also that these constitutional orders, people don't read them. And that's probably, and part of the problem in Montserrat is when they were doing the public consensus gathering, enough people weren't showing up. And then the way we are, well, if they don't come, we do it anyway. We didn't spend enough time, to my mind, make sure they knew. Because when you read things like all these spaces where, and the governor's decision may not be inquired into by any court of law, and the governor can do this and is not required to consult with. And we're not talking about, we're talking about things that have to do with people's identity and people's history and what we're going to be or not be 100 years from now. So it's really important. And, when you talk about the land, that's 600, how many square miles you said? 634 square miles, that's a lot of property. And you're right. The waters, we don't consider that either. We're not taking enough time to really consider what our value is. We've been taught that just a bunch of little islands, rocks with not much or anything. No. We need to get out past that. And we need to be, it's all about information. Having people out there and making people to understand. And I remember a few years ago when Mrs. May went off to Africa, because they were doing the same thing, that is the plan. And they said so in so many words. We want to restore all relationships. And Julius Malema from South Africa had them to know, yes, you can come, we will talk with you. But bear in mind, the relationship will not be the one that we had before. And that we need to impress on our people.
Yeah.
We cannot be describing ourselves as being owned by people anymore. No, we cannot be having people disposing of our lands for us with no need to even we've done it. No. We need to take control. And remember, Shaina, before we talked about this is the last point. I've been talking a lot about being intentional about where we want to go and how we want to do it. We need to do that. You get to say, no, this is, and I heard somebody say it about BDI. I heard somebody say, well, let the British government say what they want to do. And then, no. Tell them what you want and then begin from there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We have to, if there's an agenda, then we need to make sure we have our agenda.
Absolutely.
Say, where is the compromise that is needed to make sure that our interest as well as their interest, because in some of our minds, we understand that this needs to be for a time because it's not sustainable. It's going to constantly be under tension. It's either going to be something this year, a few years, things are a little calm, and then it blows again. So it's not sustainable, really and truly, if the other party is not willing to truly compromise and say, acknowledge that you have a right as a people to self-governance and that we have a responsibility to help you get there. But that is where, to me, in my mind now, having read that last report, there's the disconnect, because with people, again, as Juenka illustrated, you have cycles of governors coming every 2-3 years, but has things gotten better over time, and now it's come to a head, as it were. And, everyone acknowledges, yes, we do have serious issues. The case now with the former premier just, they brought the magnification even harder in on us. But it doesn't change the fact of what the situation is on the ground. We have the capacity to do what we need to do. But this needs to be more of a negotiation than, the draconian style that has come in and caught a lot of people off guard, because, again, there was a period of calm before the storm. So it seems as if it's sudden and thing. But, guys, I enjoyed this conversation. Someone also dropped that in the chat saying they've been enjoying the conversation, because I know it's very enlightening to a lot of persons that they don't think about these issues as being part and parcel of nation building. And that is what we really are discussing tonight. It's, as a nation, being in control of your own destiny should be, what the focus and the end game is. As you said earlier, Shirley, it's a long game. And we have to determine, again, where is it that we want to be in the next 10, 20 years, and what do we need to do to put it in place? Because if the persons that are responsible for helping us get there not doing their part, then we have to make sure that we are doing our part to prepare ourselves and ready ourselves for that next stage in our development, and not just accept, anything that's taken. So I appreciate everyone's frustration on certain things, because I'm sure, again, we've talked, Shirley, in the past about, politics on the ground in Montserrat, and this is similar sentiments in terms of public trust. That's the big thing that has eroded over the years, but it still doesn't mean we throw the baby out with the bathwater. We still have to hang on to it. So I really appreciate you guys being here tonight and contributing. Again, for those who may have tuned in late, apologies from my co-hosts, Eden and Chris. Chris is actually at the Committee 24 meeting that's being held this year in St. Lucia. And acknowledgement again to our media partners. Thank you for helping us continue to inform and unite our overseas territory, and is now expanding throughout the Caribbean. ZJB Radio in Montserrat, PJFE in Saba, CBN Radio 90.9 here in the Virgin Islands, Channel 82. Thank you. Bermuda Radio, Turks and Caicos, and Cayman Marl Road. If you have not, because this is your first time, I'm going to give you a pass. If you have not liked our Facebook page as yet, please go ahead and do so tonight. So whenever our next episode is scheduled, it will automatically come up in your feed. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. Both are called Territories Talk, so you can search for them and be there, a part of this conversation. You can send us ideas for shows and anything else that you guys may have had. Yes. Okay, so checking the comments. So yes, so thank you to everyone who has tuned in and those who will view later on. Let's continue to have these conversations to inform and unite our overseas territories family. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Take care.
Peace and blessings.
And you.